The Answer.
Your next news update is at 7 o'clock. Continuous coverage of news, traffic, and weather at 560theanswer.com. Now, more of Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by In the Know with Wealth Management Group, hosted by Craig Bolanos. Heard Sunday mornings at 10.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. As Facebook is moving forward despite the many targets for its breakup and regulation, moving forward into new spaces like cryptocurrency, the announcement this week of its Libra cryptocurrency. What does it mean? How will it change our lives? Will it change our lives? For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined again by Scott Diamond, who's a cryptocurrency expert. We've had him on the show before. He's the one who's sort of given me a crash course in blockchain technology and Bitcoin and all the other cryptocurrencies. And I'm glad I didn't buy Bitcoin when it was at 20 grand, but I wish I would have bought it when it was at 3, because now it's over 9, right, Scott?
How much is it?
Yep, 92.50 this morning.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So give us sort of the introduction of Libra by Facebook and, frankly, some pretty serious partners, PayPal, MasterCard, Uber, Spotify, that are all partnering with Facebook on this. The importance of that offering from Facebook in the context of the landscape of cryptocurrency at present.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me back. So this has been a few years in coming in terms of Facebook and or Google and or Amazon getting into this space and trying to take a swing. Myself, I'm kind of a big Bitcoin maximalist of sorts. And when this news hit last week and the white paper hit earlier, it was the reaction most people thought I was going to have is, darn shucks. And my reaction was, this is going to be great, because there's an opportunity here for literally billions of people to start considering what this ecosystem can and can't do. I harken back to about a year and a half ago when Nicolas Maduro down in Venezuela went ahead and tried to launch a petrocoin that was backed by Venezuelan oil reserves. And I was happy to see that, because I'm like, I can't wait to see that be a spectacular failure, because when a kleptocracy goes ahead and tries to be in control of a digital money supply that can be inflated and printed and handed out to cronies at a whim, people are going to start understanding that the true decentralization is where the power of cryptocurrency comes.
Well, okay, so Facebook's Libra, it's the digital dollar. How is it going to be regulated? Who's in charge of?
Well, that's what's going to be the fun thing to see, how this experiment plays out. And my long-term prediction is that it's going to be a big fail. But I think that there's going to be a lot of lessons that are going to be learned throughout the way, which is why I'm really excited about it.
Well, why do you think it's going to fail in the long run?
Well, because the key to a solid, stable currency in the cryptocurrency space is limit of supply and decentralization of control on how that supply is created. There's no real indication from Facebook that they plan on even addressing that. The idea is that a dollar goes in, a Libra is created. A dollar comes out, a Libra is destroyed. So there's really no control over that supply.
But as I understand it, this is really meant to build a payments processing network. That's what Facebook is really doing here. And it's a little bit different than like a Bitcoin and perhaps some of the other cryptocurrencies, which are really stores of value. They're not, Bitcoin is not trying to be part of building out a processing network.
Correct. So that's where the differences are going to be seen, and that's why I'm kind of excited about it, because people are going to start realizing that, and certainly with tens of millions of people being exposed to this topic again, as opposed to last year and a half ago when it was just a speculatory investor frenzy. This is going to be a better time for people to sit back and kind of understand where those differences are. So getting back to the power of cryptocurrency versus what the Libra is cryptocurrency has what's called decentralized governance. So there's really no head of Bitcoin. There's no corporate headquarters. There's no place of being able to say, we want to do a class action lawsuit against Bitcoin. It's absolutely impenetrable from that perspective. And that's where I think that Libra is going to have some problems. I mean, even just yesterday, the German and the French, finance ministers are already talking about we're not going to let this take over the euro. We're not going to let this
Right.
replace it. So, and the other thing too is that Facebook is an attackable entity. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is a human being. Everybody knows where he's at. I think that they're trying to do something that's admirable in terms of decentralizing the kind of the node base, which is adding all these other companies, PayPal, Visa, Google, Uber, and they're trying to bring in as many as 100 other partner companies, but they're asking for a $10 million buy-in in order to be able to start funding the developer base. And so I think it's going to be an interesting, probably 2-year experience.
But if they have partners that will accept, and this is part of the challenge, right, with cryptocurrency, making it a unit of transaction. If they have partners like Uber
Well, yeah,
that will
PayPal,
accept,
eBay, Lyft.
yeah, right,
MasterCard.
that will accept transactions, and so they build in this network, then sans government, a real showdown with government. Just setting government regulators aside for a second, trying to protect their own currencies. I mean, this could really telescope cryptocurrency pretty quickly with those many transactions that are being done in cryptocurrency.
Yes, and I think what's going to happen is that there's going to be an evolution of the language here, where people won't necessarily, at least the people on the technical side of the business, won't really consider the Libra a cryptocurrency. It will be considered kind of a crypto fiat exchange platform. And certainly it will be interesting to see how that gets adopted by these other companies. But at the end of the day, when you got Visa involved, they're going to want to be able to take their cut. If you're
Sure.
paying Uber, so it's no different than Samsung Pay or Apple Pay, where all it is you're using your cell phone to use your credit card in order to be able to, get the 2.9% fees into the credit card network to support that. So what these companies are trying to do is say, give us $1 and we're going to give you a Libra. And then we're going to take that dollar and we're going to hold on to it and we're going to collect the interest on it. And that's a collective benefit for these 100 companies that
Right.
Facebook is trying to recruit, is that they essentially want to take all of that revenue from the cash that they're holding while they're sending out this digital currency in replacement of the dollar.
And excuse my ignorance, but when you want to cash in then or cash out with your Bitcoin or with this new Libra, do you have to pay taxes on that?
Well, because they're trying to set this up as a one-to-one value with the U.S. dollar, there really would not necessarily be a gain, so to speak. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is that nobody's talking about this even being live until Q1, Q2 of next year,
Right.
which means it could be Q3. So we're still a long ways out. So there's going to be a lot of news that comes out in terms of whether or not exchanges are even going to bother with this. There's already 5 or 6 stable coins that are attached to the U.S. dollar in the crypto space in order to be able to help exchanges be able to use a value pegged to the dollar, but not actually have to get on the U.S. financial rails where they're actually taking dollars in from the U.S. financial system.
Well, are there any other new developments in cryptocurrency with respect specifically to increased use of any particular cryptocurrency in commercial transactions?
So I would say that probably the thing that's been out there and the development is still continuing is still the Lightning Network on the Bitcoin network, Bitcoin and Litecoin. And what the Lightning Network allows is for, say, a retailer to be able to start taking in Bitcoin, but being able to decide whether or not they're going to hold it for the meantime or go ahead and immediately sell it. So there's now companies that are trying to get in business to be able to say, hey, you're over the 18-hour moving average or the 24-hour moving average. I think you should sell into dollars, or you're below it, you should hold into Bitcoin. But what happens is that you might have tens of thousands of transactions between Sunday and Friday, and on Friday you can settle one transaction for one transaction fee. So you're looking at, you'll read a lot of stuff about Libra is better than Bitcoin from a transaction speed standpoint, because Libra they're predicting is going to be 1,000 transactions a second in terms of its capacity, and Bitcoin's only 7 to 10 transactions per second, and that's meant to juxtapose it to as being one superior to the other. But the security risk that Libra is going to have is, can you imagine the hackers that are out there to be like, who is going to make a career and a name to say, I was the one that took down Facebook Libra? People are already, I'm sure, just jumping out of their skin at the opportunity to be able to attack. There's only going to be 50 nodes that are protecting this network, which is tiny, versus the 17,000 nodes that protect Bitcoin.
Facebook did announce, though, that it's also setting up a regulated subsidiary called Calibra that will provide access to the new currency with separate financial data from other social data that Facebook uses on its platform to try to add one layer of security to your data.
Well, it's at one degree of separation
Yeah.
to get over that kind of trust issue, which is obviously a big PR issue of theirs today. Calibra is also going to be, they own Calibra, and they're going to create a wallet system. And water seeks its lowest, its lowest levels. So most users of Facebook and most users who are interested in Libra are probably just going to adopt the Calibra wallet. So it's going to be interesting because the wallets are the ones that then become third-party custodians. Think of the bank where you put your check in the bank and the bank gets robbed, you're out. But that's a little bit different because of the flexibility.
When Bitcoin was all the rage and everybody was talking about it, and the run up to 20 grand sometime last year, you had these exchanges roll out too. People trade in Bitcoin, and many of those exchanges have closed. So is that just the growing pains with cryptocurrency, or how do you assess this volatility?
Right. Well, one thing just to settle, Bitcoin hit 20 grand outside the U.S., 18 grand here, and it did it for about 6 hours. So over an 11-year period, it was really a flash moment. It's an easy talking point to point to, like, oh my gosh, look at how terrible this is. But it only spent about 2.5 weeks over 15,000 and maybe about a month and a half over 12. So the fact that we're sitting at 9,500 here is actually very close to its historical average, which is good because, people got in, they got burned, and now the second generation of people are getting in and saying, okay, why is this of greater value than anything else?
But not everyone got burned, right?
Oh, no, not at all.
They had all these success stories on NBC News. And
Sure.
I
But
got to pay for my daughter's wedding and paid off her student loan debt.
right, and there's different philosophies of the kind of the internal Bitcoin community. I mean, most people say you're doing the best thing for the network if you're buying and holding, because it's the scarcity of the resource, and that's the thing about pegging the value of the Libra to the dollar. There's no scarcity in dollars, so there's going to be no scarcity in Libra, theoretically. So the long-term value of the Libra is simply, is it an easier way of transacting in your daily life? And yes, it is. Maybe it is, and it's going to be a personal choice. But we here in America have 100 ways of paying for things, from cash to credit cards to debit cards.
But the exchanges, the story of the
'cause-
exchanges.
So the exchanges, of course, the exchanges are relatively easy to blow up. It's almost like cut, copy, and paste. So it was very easy for people to start an exchange. But the problem is that your exchange can't live without volume. And the volume comes by being able to get people to come in and offer, make markets by putting up their crypto and putting in dollars to be able to buy and sell so that you can create that volatility. If you don't have volatility, you're not attracting traders. If you're not attracting traders, you can't have volatility, and therefore you don't have revenue, and therefore
No exchange.
Then there's also the problem of lack of security, so exchanges getting hacked and their private keys, and that gets back to the whole third-party custodial thing with Calibra, with Libra, where Calibra is going to probably end up being responsible for billions of dollars of customer assets, and that's the attack vector for the hackers to be able to figure out how to get in, whether it's social engineering hacks, where they're taking people's private keys and being able to just swipe their coin.
So what has the growth been in participation volume, if you will, with respect to Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies? Are you seeing more and more people adopting this, at least as part of their portfolio, or engaging in terms of interest in conducting transactions in these cryptocurrencies?
So in the United States, I wouldn't say transaction volume has really grown that much. I think it has definitely been accepted by a lot of people as an investable, like an actual asset class. So the problem is, though, is that there's that firewall between, investment advisors and not being able to speak about it.
Right.
And then also their clients asking them. So that's the hardest thing. People call me all the time. It's like I got to wait to talk to you at the hockey game tonight because I can't talk to you about this over the phone because I'm not allowed to promote this because we don't sell it. And
right.
So that's the whole ETF thing, and that's going to be that's eventually going to happen, whether it's next year or the year after.
So you think, you still are very bullish on not just Bitcoin, but cryptocurrency, blockchain technology. This is still the wave of the future.
Absolutely. As I said at the beginning, I'm a Bitcoin maximalist by heart. I'm also interested in what decentralized storage offers in terms of being able to kind of defang the crypto ransom and extortionists that are sitting in Eastern Europe and Russia right now. There's massive amounts of outflow of capital that's happening in the insurance industry, and it's just going to be one of these problems that people are going to have to learn how to deal with.
And Facebook, whether this Libra and Calibra, whether they end up building the best mousetrap in terms of a payment processing network or not, this is a step forward towards that future of cryptocurrency being a central part of conducting business.
Correct. And I, the other thing too is that when I first got into the space, one of the most confusing aspects of cryptocurrency that the really smart people would try to get across to me is that Bitcoin is censorship resistant. And this Libra is going to expose what that is. I mean, if you take a look how Facebook and Google prostrate themselves in front of foreign governments in order to make sure that their sites stay up, this is the same thing. So, there's a lot of talk of, oh my gosh, this is going to, make financial lives for the unbanked and the billions of unbanked so much easier. It's like, well, that depends on whether or not your government lets the ISP let your wallet address and lets your third-party custodian access even through their internet pipeline. So that's another huge thing where I think cryptocurrencies, because they're censorship resistant, because they're not relying upon a centralized authority, a centralized website, a centralized wallet, a third-party custodian, they're going to eventually win the day.
Interesting. Scott Diamond, cryptocurrency expert.